All right, we're back with another episode. All 3 million Epstein files just dropped. I'm sure they didn't hold anything back. We looked through them all. Everything's been illuminated. So no one's getting arrested though, right? Because of course not, right? And I was reading through them.
I think that if they were to say who did it, I think the government would collapse, because then everyone would be like, but how was this person telling me what to do? And I think it would overthrow the government.
The whole, why would you pay taxes to a bunch of pedophiles?
Yeah.
Yeah, no. And Mike Johnson even said that. If we release all the names, everything unredacted, the government would collapse. Our political order would be gone, and we'd have absolute anarchy. But after looking at all these files, one of the things that jumped out to me that, I wanted to point out here is all of our billionaires write like a bunch of kindergartners. And I don't understand why. Everything's misspelled. They're completely illiterate. Epstein doesn't make any sense in half of his emails.
But I think that's the point.
That they're retarded or what? These are supposed to be the most impressive people we have in our society. They can't even formulate a sentence. These people, their emails read like a Facebook post from the dumbest people you know.
No.
There's definitely some coded language going on, but I also think they're just stupid. And speaking of the coded language maybe getting a little misinterpreted here, let's start with Elon Musk's, because Elon Musk has been, I'll give him this, he wanted the Epstein files released, it seemed like from the very beginning. So I figured I would pull up a few things here for our boy Elon. So here's the first one. Elon sends an email here to Jeffrey Epstein. This is in, let's see. Oh, it doesn't give us a date. So this is to Jeffrey Epstein. Subject, Epic Island Vacation. Hi, Jeff. I was thinking of flying down from Epic Vacation. Redacted. Told me you were planning a party. Girls for the win. I cleared my calendar. What are the details? Thank you, good sir. Then Jeffrey Epstein forwards this to his assistant and says, deal with this. Again, deal with 4 spaces. With this is one word, a period, and then than you, because he can't spell anything ever. And so then the assistant responds to Elon Musk, hey, I'm sorry, Elon, you just missed Jeffrey Epstein. He actually told me he was thinking of winding down the entire Little St. James operation. Bummer. If it starts up again, we'll let you know. So they pretended they were closing down the entire Epstein Island to avoid hanging out with Elon Musk, which is kind of crazy. So here's another tism showing through. So this is on September 11th, 2013, actually. Elon Musk sends this email. Jeffrey Epstein sends this to Elon. He says, hey, any plans for New York, the opening of the General Assembly? He's talking about the United Nations. Has many interesting people coming to the house. Elon Musk responds saying, I run and lead product design engineering for 2 complicated companies. Moreover, SpaceX is about to launch what is arguably the most advanced rocket in history. Flying to New York to see UN diplomats would do nothing for me and is an unwise use of time. And here, read Jeffrey Epstein's response. So he's asking him to come party, Jeffrey Epstein is. Elon says no, he doesn't want to go hang out with diplomats. I think this goes back to your coded language. This was never about diplomats. This was going to see underage girls in New York. And Jeffrey Epstein responds, do you think I am retarded? Just kidding. There's no one over 25 and all very cute. We know that those are to Elon Musk, but here's the really weird,
I wonder why they
one.
redacted Elon's and not anybody else's.
Well, yeah.
Because he had said no. Because he
didn't actually show up.
But it still puts him in a bad light, because it's okay, but you wanted to go, but why Elon? Yeah. That feels very calculated to me. Someone's trying to make it seem like Elon's bad.
Especially when you compare it to this. This is the perfect juxtaposition, okay? This is to Jeffrey Epstein from Redacted, okay? Thank you for the fun night. Your littlest girl was a little naughty.
Ew.
Yep.
That is so horrible.
And so why is that person? So the FBI has come out and said, oh, they actually didn't traffic to anybody else. There, was no other people there committing crimes, yada, yada, yada. Why can't we see that person's name? Why isn't that person being arrested?
Well, we know the FBI lies sometimes.
Lies all the time.
So, like, I really don't trust. And I think that's why they wouldn't release, because there's already so much mistrust within the government and everyone mistrusting the government that this would really put it over the edge.
Listen to this. This is Elon talking to Tucker in 2024. So this is after, Epstein's allegedly dead. And
when are we going to see that?
Allegedly, yeah, there are people out there think this was all cover up for him to escape. But we're not getting into that this episode. That's for a different episode.
But I love a conspiracy.
I know you do. Well, we'll cover it in another one. Don't worry. Here's Elon.
When are we going to see that list, do you think?
I don't know. It's mind blowing that
2024.
They've not tried to prosecute even one, not even the worst offender on the Epstein client list. They've not even tried to prosecute even one. That's insane.
Well, because they have a lot of diabetic grandmothers who were outside the Capitol on January 6th. They're kind of occupied.
Yeah, they've put 500 or 600 January 6th protesters in prison, and not one person on the Epstein client list.
Will that ever come out, do you think?
I think part of why Kamala's getting so much support is that if Trump wins, that Epstein client list is going to become public.
Yes.
And some of those billionaires behind Kamala are terrified of that outcome.
Yeah. Do you think Reid Hoffman's uncomfortable?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Gates.
And Gates.
Yeah.
That's a little prophetic. Reid Hoffman is in the Epstein files, just so we're clear. But let's talk about Bill Gates. It's so unprompted. Elon Musk throws Bill Gates' name out there. So there are emails, and this was a draft that was left in Jeffrey Epstein's inbox, where he is bringing up to Bill Gates that he had gotten an STD. Bill Gates got an STD and brought it home to his wife. And Gates is trying to figure out a way to drug his wife with antibiotics so she won't find out that he, got this STD over at Epstein Island. So first of all, why is Jeffrey Epstein putting that in writing to Bill Gates if it's for any other reason than to blackmail him?
Mm-hmm.
And to me, it's so clearly like a blackmail operation. And then, of course, naturally, Bill Gates ends up being one of the COVID vaccine pushers, a real ethical guy. He wants to make sure everybody gets their medicine, whether they like it or not, or know about it, all that stuff. So,
did you see that his ex-wife went on a podcast and started talking about him? And well, she was one of the first ones who said, yeah, he was with Epstein.
Mm-hmm.
She was one of the first ones who kind of called him out for it.
And her body language, I wish I had that clip queued up. Her body language is super creepy. If you saw any of it, she's asked how she feels about it and if she's surprised, and she's shaking her head no and saying yes. It's a really weird kind of like body language tell. I don't know. That whole clip is really weird. If people should go watch that.
Mm-hmm.
You can find it on Twitter. All right, you ready to get into the conspiracy theory stuff? And again, I hate to even call it a conspiracy theory because I think this is the most likely scenario we've got here. But
allegedly.
Yeah, everything that follows this is just allegedly, of course. So we know Epstein Island, not just a playground for the rich and famous, right? There was some real motive here. Something was going on. Jeffrey Epstein is behind the scenes. He's pulling strings. He's trying to, make hundreds of millions of dollars. Maybe money's the motivation. I don't know. But this is more than just about partying, right? This is about the deepest, darkest, satanic crimes that are being committed here. So they find cameras everywhere in his mansion. Okay.
Were they all noticeable, or were there some small
No,
ones?
they were hidden cameras. He
Okay.
said. The emails clearly imply he's blackmailing people. The Bill Gates draft one is the perfect example. Why would you ever put something like that in writing if you weren't intending to blackmail one of the richest men and one of the most powerful men in the
Well,
world.
also in your email, like I feel like there's like
And he's using it like Gmail or what
Yeah.
is it, Gmail or Yahoo? He's not even using like Proton Mail. He's not even. You're right. Like he's not even using anything secure. He's just
that's also what's weird about this. It's like they're all in like regular emails. Like I would imagine like a little black book or something
right being a
that
little
they
more secure.
and like you put it in the safe and you have pictures in. I'm sure that he did have that.
yeah, the
but
safe
also,
contents went missing. By the way,
I'm sure they freaking did.
yep. FBI lost the evidence.
I'm sure they did.
Figures. Just another.
I bet someone in the FBI was definitely there.
Well, the FBI was probably in on this from the beginning, and the
Really?
CIA. Oh yeah. We're gonna get there. So they find cameras everywhere in the mansion. Okay, blackmail. It's clearly what's going on. Jeffrey Epstein is getting paid this whole time by a lot of really rich people. So again, this isn't just about the parties. Like you can have all the conspiracies you want about Diddy and all the things going on. But the Diddy stuff seemed more about like the parties, right? He's in Hollywood. He's a rapper. This Epstein
No,
guy,
it was about,
it's way creepier.
Partying, but also they're called freak offs
Yeah,
with
but
like
that's
prostitutes and stuff.
but the point was the freak off with the Diddy shit, right? The point the pedophilia doesn't seem to be the point with Epstein. The point seems to be the blackmail after the pedophilia. Okay, so how does Epstein, get here? They again, we've already covered the cameras, the rich people, but to me, it's clear he trafficked in information. He's not looking just to, bring like weird pedophiles. Like you could find like weird pedophiles on the street and, bring them to your island and have an island full of pedophiles. But that's not what was going on. He's bringing rich, powerful, famous people to his island. His whole thing, he wasn't selling like stock. He wasn't, creating new technology. He trafficked in information. That's his whole shtick, his whole deal. So then the question is he just like this lone power broker who's this
The question is
power
to
hungry
who?
guy? Well, there we go. We're getting there. We're working up to this. Is he by himself? Probably not, right? Because the whole greed, people have made the argument that his whole motive was greed. Well, he had $1 billion. There are plenty of people, not plenty of people, hundreds that acquire $1 billion and still choose to work, right? And still make a lot of money. You can call it greed. You can call it whatever you want. I don't think it's greed because greed doesn't explain how he got rich to begin with. Okay. Keep in mind, he's an ex-school teacher. He has no college degree. He has no big clients. Okay. And somehow he becomes the financial manager for this billionaire, the founder of Victoria's Secret, named Les Wexner. He becomes his power of attorney. He lives in Wexner's mansion. Okay, $70 million mansion. He lives there for free. But so he gets paid hundreds of millions of dollars by Les Wexner. Okay, and then another man named Leon Black for financial advice, quote unquote. Both these guys, Jewish billionaires. So then Epstein is seen meeting Ehud Barak, the former head of Mossad and Israeli prime minister. Okay, over 40 times. Some reports even say that Ehud Barak was living in Epstein's New York mansion. So then on top of that,
being funded by.
yeah, that was all being funded by Les Wexner.
Okay.
So he then, to top it all off here, Ghislaine Maxwell's dad, of course, is a Mossad spy. Ghislaine Maxwell, of course, being in prison right now for being the madam for this whole
Okay. Also,
pedophile
if they
operation.
weren't trafficking and if they weren't doing something bad, then why is she in jail?
Exactly. Though that's the whole gotcha question they always ask. Who was she trafficking to? They weren't
Yeah.
trafficking to nobody,
It makes no sense.
but the FBI claims that she was just trafficking to Epstein. And that's obviously not true. That's
because he's
complete
dead and he
bullshit.
can't say anything else.
Exactly.
Allegedly.
So, I mean, none of those points by themselves like point to a Mossad blackmail operation, but all of them together, like these
It
Jewish
can't all be a
billionaires,
coincidence.
yeah, just happen to give all this money to this guy for financial advice, even though he doesn't really know anything.
Well,
And
what
then,
was happening? I think
it's
it'd be
just-
interesting to do a timeline. What was happening? Where Israel?
Yeah.
What was happening in Israel during that time, and like what advances or not advances were occurring, and what was happening in the United States at that time? I think that'd be interesting to do a timeline to see if.
Well, I can tell you, this is all the era of the Iraq War. And this all goes back to the clean break, where Israel decides, instead of negotiating with the Palestinians and trying to come to a two-state solution, they're going to overthrow the different countries in the region, the 7 countries that are supporting the Palestinians.
What was the United States stance on that? They let it.
We invaded Iraq, which was one of the countries on the list.
They wanted.
Yeah, that they wanted to overthrow. We were overthrowing the government of Syria, which just fell in the last couple of years. Sudan fell into civil war.
So we were doing what
we
their-
overthrew Libya.
So we were doing their work for them after the list they made.
Exactly. And it technically it wasn't.
Who was the
just the
president during
list
that time?
they made. It was the presidents that are mainly at fault for this are Bill Clinton, George
Well,
W.
you know,
Bush,
he's weird.
Barack Obama. Yeah, and Bill Clinton, of course, a big Epstein client. But so that's where this all and the clean break memo and everything. It's really complicated because the lines are blurry as to whether the United States came up with this plan or Israel came up
Well, it
with this
doesn't
plan. But it's
matter
pretty
because
clear.
they were probably like, "This is your idea." Wink, wink.
Exactly.
Blackmail.
Exactly. You can go back and find Benjamin Netanyahu, the
Meeting
prime
with
minister of
them.
Israel, meeting with Congress and advocating for the overthrow of Iraq, saying we'll be greeted as liberators, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, I'm
all
sure.
just a
and
bunch of
half
crap.
Congress was probably in the Epstein Island.
It's all that. So that's when all this is going on. So on top of all this, okay, Epstein harbors according to these emails that we're going to read here in a second, harbored some pretty interesting views on non-Jews. And we're going to read the tweets right now because
There were tweets
we're going to read the emails, not the tweets.
from Jeffrey.
Yeah, these are all going to be from Jeffrey Epstein here.
Two redacted.
Not all of them. This one's to Roger Schenck. This is the big one, okay? Which I don't know who Roger Schenck is, but this is in 2009. He says, this is Jeffrey Epstein talking. This is the way the Jew make money. Again, he's fucking illiterate. So I may just editorialize here a little bit just to not sound like a complete idiot. So this is the way the Jew make money and make a fortune in the past 10 years, selling short the shipping futures, let the goyim, which is a slur for non-Jewish people, deal in the real world. From shipping news, the most dramatic growth has been in shipping futures, which allows shipping companies to lay off risks. The most popular futures are forward freight agreements to deliver goods on a particular route at some point in the future. They've grown in the past year to be roughly the size of the physical market, according to the bill lines of the Baltic Exchange, a shipping bazaar in London that sells these futures. Many in the industry have been suspicious of such futures because they have been adverse to hedging their bets. Risk-taking is, after all, part of the game, and averse to complicated financial instruments they do not really understand. So what he's saying here is that Jews are making money on complicated financial instruments, and they just let the goyim deal with it in the real world, which is a crazy thing to just be saying. But here we go. We have more. He says this is from Michael Wolff here to Jeffrey Epstein. War between the Jews. Right now, this is Michael Wolff sends Epstein a link about Bannon being removed from the Security Council. And Jeffrey Epstein responds saying, war between the Jews and non-Jews. Jews presently winning. Again, a weird thing to say. I wasn't aware of any war between Jews and non-Jews, but apparently Epstein saw it that way. Finally, he says, this is from Jeffrey Epstein, I found criteria to find smart people. The more Jew you are, the smarter you are. You said you're 98% Jew. You're very smart. My Xbox boss is 78% Jew, and he's super smart, but less smart than you are. I have a close friend, business partner, who's 99.3% Jew, and he's crazy smart. We take all Jewish people. Sourcing can be done through relatives. Ask them to do 23andMe test. Do an event for everyone who's 98% Jew. Also, all of them are not religious. Do you think this makes sense? So here's how I reach my conclusion then. So after all that you've just read, his opinions on the non-Jews, how all this stuff happened, the goyim as he wants to call everybody. After everything you've just heard, what are the odds this guy is not passing information to the Mossad, which is the Israeli special intelligence? Of course he's passing information to the Mossad. Probably even multiple intelligence agencies, to be honest. The CIA is, likely in on this too. But you've got a guy here in summer. He made millions off of Jewish billionaires for apparently no reason. His girlfriend, who's helping him traffic these kids, is her dad's a Mossad agent. He's trafficking kids to world leaders, and his racial views are that Jews are the supreme race. I don't believe for a second that the Mossad couldn't convince this guy to pass him information.
Well, if the FBI lost all the files from the safe, I bet I know who has them, who has backup copies.
The people that were getting them to begin with.
Yeah.
The intelligence agencies that were running this whole thing. I mean, if the Mossad couldn't convince this guy to give them information, they're the worst intelligence agency in the world, and they're definitely not the worst intelligence agency in the world. So they are getting this information from Jeffrey Epstein 100%. I mean, if it was your job, if you're running an intelligence agency, okay, and you don't know that this is all going on. Remember, these guys can read everyone's emails. They can listen to the phone calls, the texts. They know who all the movers and shakers are. They know that all these people are meeting at this island, okay?
They probably have live feeds.
They know exactly what's going on. Of course, they're getting information from him. That's what this whole operation is about, is information. There's a trap door in his house that goes right down into the ocean. What do you think? There are all sorts of theories about. There actually are not as many of these victims coming forward as you would think.
Because they're dead.
And the thought is
also,
that a lot of them were missing children that ended up dead at the bottom of the ocean.
I was going to say, there must be, if there's such a there's children who are missing, and I would also be interested to see the rate of missing children during that era, during that time, how many of them were missing. And also I would be interested to see, because they probably had a, like a model, like what they liked to see in these girls. So I would like to see if there was a pattern and how many girls were gone missing during that time.
But it would be misleading because we're assuming that he was just taking American girls, and that's probably not the case. Like I was just writing an article that it was in just the Biden era, 30,000 kids that came across the border were unaccompanied minors that when the government went to follow up with them within 30 days could not reach the kids again.
Yeah, that's
30,000.
It's crazy.
And those kids won't show up as missing children for U.S. law enforcement because they came from another country.
Yeah.
And granted, I think the Trump administration did find a lot of those kids, but not all of them. So I think we would be, I'm trying to think, if you think this was just American kids being abused, no way.
Well, obviously not, because he had pretty much access to any part of the world that he wanted to.
And a part of the world, the South America, Caribbean, they don't keep, good records there. It's easy for kids to fall through the cracks there.
Yeah.
Where, it happens here in the United States too, but not in the scale that it would in, some of these South and Central American countries. So, and here we go. The last bit I have in summary that actually really reminded me. I think that there are still a lot of files that are missing. There's obviously been too much that's redacted. And from the first dump, we don't want to forget the 160-page grand jury testimony, all redacted. So the way I see it is they're not going to release anything to us easily that's going to, indict people like Bill Gates or these big celebrities. So I think we got to read between the lines here and see, what's missing. The first thing, no arrests have been made. So like we had talked about, apparently this whole operation was to traffic children to nobody. There haven't been any other arrests besides Ghislaine Maxwell and then Jeffrey Epstein. Hundreds of celebrities visited the private island. Nobody even disputes that. Of the most notorious pedophile in human history, and not one person's been arrested. The FBI claims all these kids were just trafficked to Jeffrey Epstein, and all the celebrities and world leaders being there just happened to be a coincidence. That's fucking bullshit, and we shouldn't, believe any of that. The next one, no motive. We're supposed to believe that, this wasn't a blackmail operation, that the motive was just the pedophilia. Okay, all the cameras and everything there, all the celebrities, that was just, whatever. We're supposed to ignore all that. Apparently this guy, we're just supposed to think he wasn't an international fixer. He, got all his money legitimately, and nobody believes that. That's bullshit too. So we're going to have to see more, and we're going to have to see the important stuff, because I think that everything that is important is still hidden.